Hey everyone, Rho here. Today we're discussing the Chaos God Khorne, as we discuss if his time is nearing for a return to dominance. General spoiler warning to begin, as the events we are discussing today are from across the Warhammer 40k universe, so you have been warned. But with that said, let's just jump straight in. So the Gods of Chaos, the eternal enemies of pretty much every sentient race within the galaxy, and as we know, the ultimate rival for the Emperor of mankind. These beings formed by the visceral emotions of the entire galaxy. They are bent on only one thing: complete and utter domination. While there may well be countless gods of varying degrees within the Immaterium, there are the four main gods of chaos who dwarf any and all others. Khorne the Blood God, god of violence, hatred and rage. He was the first to rise. Then followed Tzeentch, the architect of fate and the changer of ways. Next came Nurgle, the god of pestilence and decay, and then the youngest of the four, she who first Slaanesh, who embodies decadence and excess. By their very nature, these gods constantly and continually war and work against each other, battling always to assert their dominance over the rest, a conflict well known as only the Great Game. In fact, this Great Game is so integral to the Chaos Gods' existence that it takes up virtually their entire attention, and previously to the explosion of the Cicatrix Maledictum, the material universe was said to be only worth an occasional glance. Just how or if the weakening of the binding between the material and immaterial has changed that, well, we don't know just yet. There were times, however, that a threat so grave arose that the gods' full attentions were drawn from the game, and that was namely the Emperor of mankind. So fearful were the four of him, they combined their might to oppose him. A conflict we all know full well as the Horus Heresy. Since then, however, perhaps the next event to truly draw the gods' attentions was Abaddon's destruction of Cadia, the event that threw the galaxy into a war of survival like no other, and which in turn saw the awakening of their long imprisoned greatest foe, the God Emperor of mankind. And while all the forces of the ruinous powers have since been running rampant across most of the Imperium, it could and probably should be said that it's the forces of Nurgle who have had by far the most success. Led by Mortarion and his Death Guard, the forces of Nurgle actually claimed a portion of Imperial territory in the name of their god, the Scourge Stars as they became known, lying just north of Guilliman's Ultramar. And this in turn led as the beachhead for Mortarion's invasion of Ultramar itself, where he came extremely close to not only killing his brother Guilliman, but also annexing a portion of his realm into the Garden of Nurgle, ultimately foiled by the efforts of the Imperium and a certain intervention of the God Emperor as well. However, it wasn't just due to the efforts of the Imperium that Nurgle was undone. His brother gods, being jealous as ever at another's success, invaded his newly acquired empire, forcing Nurgle to withdraw many of his forces across the galaxy to defend it. And even when we take a step out of the lore, it's been clear over the past several years, with their huge range update, that the Death Guard were the face of chaos for quite some time. And well, as we know, next year is hinted and heavily rumoured to be the year of chaos for 40k, where we can expect all the relevant codexes to be updated for this current edition. But not just that, we also have the rumours of World Eaters coming to play, finally and hopefully receiving a codex and range of their own. And if such a thing is to transpire, then surely this means a return of a certain Red Angel as well, as we've spoken about before on the channel. And that's Angron, just to be clear here for any newer people that may be a little confused. We're not talking Sanguinius. And ultimately, this is where I am really beginning to get the belief that the time for Khorne to rise is coming. In truth, he's been fairly quiet over the past few years, at least within the 40k world. Yes, in the immediate days of the Astronomicon going out, the Throne World was assaulted by Khorne's legions, in the event that became known as the Battle of Lion's Gate. 8 Bloodthirsters leading 88 demonic cohorts. However, the truth is, this never stood a chance of true victory, and Guilliman himself has since theorised it was simply to keep his attention on Terra and away from the Imperium at large, where the true battles needed to be fought. Since this event, well, there's not really been much of significance from the Lord of Skulls, in as much as a galaxy-changing grand event in my opinion anyway. The forces of Tzeentch? Well, Magnus has not long achieved teleporting the planet of sorcerers out of the warp, now lying alongside his beloved former home of Prospero. And since then he has been working at turning this area of space into his new kingdom. The forces of Nurgle we have already discussed, and the forces of Slaanesh? Well, the Dark Prince is focused on the Eldari and hunting down the uprising Inari faction, dispatching his chosen champion of Shalaxi Hellbane to eliminate their leader Ivrain. However, Khorne, first and strongest of all the gods of chaos, well, like I said, he's been pretty quiet by his standards. And maybe it's just wishful thinking on my part, but with 2 fellow Chaos Gods actively controlling empires, his chosen legion strongly expected to be arriving on the tabletop in all their glory, then surely now, the time is coming for Khorne to once more rise. Now when and how this will be, who knows. I'm certainly hoping for a big narrative event next year, that is for sure. I don't necessarily think it has to be completely tied to Angron and the World Eaters either, but I guess having it combined in some overarching campaign or narrative does make the most sense. As I've said previously, it wouldn't be a surprise to me to see Angron making a return on the ruined plains of Armageddon, so maybe that could once more be the hub of a major event. However, this time with Khorne's demonic forces laying waste to not only the rest of the system, but the entire segmentum at large. Now that would be an event worthy of the Blood God himself. To me, it has to be something akin to the level of Nurgle and Tzeentch's success. And while I don't think Khorne would be particularly fussed with acquiring territory, plunging an equivalent portion of the galaxy into massive bloodlust and carnage, well, that does sound about right. The question is where is this all going to transpire? Is it going to be linked with Angron and the World Eaters? Well, you would expect so if it is going to happen. Or instead, could there be something completely unexpected? Maybe a vast blood crusade the other side of the Great Rift. Khorne once more facing his long-time longed-for Blood Angels, forcing the sons of Sanguinius once more to face their rage. Well, that does sound like another possibility. Although, let's be fair, Dante does have his hands full. That said, there was some Khorne involvement during the devastation of Baal, so who knows? You never know, that could be the event that finally gives us that much wished for Dante model. As always guys, what do you think? Do you think it's time for Khorne to take a step back into the spotlight? Is it time for him to assert his dominance? And if so, where and how do you think it will go down? Would it involve the World Eaters and his chosen champion of Angron? Or do you think we could be looking more in the demonic world only? Maybe Khorne putting Tzeentch and Nurgle back in their place? As always guys, leave your thoughts in the comments below, I love to read them. Huge thank you to all my subscribers, your support truly means a lot to me, it really does. And if you're new, please consider subscribing to help the channel grow. But with that said, I am off, and I'll see you all again real soon.